Hey everybody, I'm Madelyne Woods. You're watching The Goods, and today we're talking with attorney Daryl Parks about redlining. Now, normally when you hear the term redlining, you think about banks denying services to residents of certain income levels. But there's a situation in Cleveland where AT&T, one of the country's largest telecom corporations, is now facing accusations of redlining, which basically means AT&T is deliberately installing low-speed broadband in certain areas of the city. So, Mr. Parks, let's get into it. How did you first learn about these perceived disparities?
Well, I have some friends in Cleveland, and we happen to just be talking generally about things, and we happen to talk about the computer. She was telling about the problems she was having with her computer and how slow it was. And I really didn't think much of it when she mentioned it. It was not until I saw an NDIA issue talking about high-speed broadband issues in certain neighborhoods in Cleveland that I began to put the two together and realized that she may have been affected by this issue. As I did a little research, we quickly found out that it was very likely that she fell squarely into this issue that NDIA had in their particular study, talking about the high-speed broadband issues in certain neighborhoods in Cleveland, Ohio.
How could something like this even happen? From a political standpoint, there's supposed to be checks and balances and oversights and monitoring. How did we get here?
From what we can tell, AT&T has done a good job of convincing lawmakers in the state of Ohio that, one, internet shouldn't be regulated, two, that they would do the right thing and make sure that when they did go into various communities, that they would treat everyone the same. Well, what we clearly see is that AT&T has not treated all communities the same and has chosen to make a systematic and deliberate decision to redline in certain communities and not give them the proper service that they probably deserve.
Wow, that's pretty heavy to say that. So let's talk about what the everyday impact is for these citizens who are getting this inferior service. What are they missing out on?
Well, the one thing that we see when we start talking about high-speed-based broadband, just the level of speed allows certain opportunities in education, certain opportunities relates to health care. And so when you don't have that level of high-speed broadband, you don't have the same opportunities within at least those two areas to really fully participate as other communities would be able to do, because they do have that level of speed. Those are issues now that are very much a part of everyday American life. And so when you start denying the disadvantage, the same opportunities in everyday American life, we have an issue there. We have a serious issue there. What matters is that they are redlining. And so that becomes very important, that we look at this issue and work to make AT&T do the right thing by these disadvantaged communities.
So, Mr. Parks, when I hear what you're describing, it's really disturbing to imagine that this is happening to certain residents. Is this unique to Cleveland? Is it happening in other parts of Ohio or even in the country?
Well, what we have seen in our research so far is that this issue exists both in Dayton, Toledo, and Detroit, and in some communities in California. So this is just the beginning of the project for us, and that's what we've seen thus far. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are other communities out there within the country who have the same issue.
What do you say to the people who say, okay, again, pretty much what I just said, AT&T has a reputation, they would never do anything like this. You can't make me believe this.
Well, I think we all have to say shame on AT&T. They're the ones who made the decision to systematically and deliberately redline against these communities in Cleveland, Ohio. But we're going to handle this battle a little bit differently, in that I believe several things. Number one, that there ought to be stockholders at AT&T who should be concerned about this type of behavior on the part of AT&T and what type of liability proposes for them to have their company out there redlining in this day and time. Number two, I think that consumers who support AT&T over their various products ought to be concerned that when it came to this particular high-speed broadband issue, and when they had a chance to make a decision to do the right thing and to provide good, equal, fair, high-speed broadband, they chose not to. They chose to make a different decision and to give these people inferior equipment. And number three, if it comes to it, we believe that the courtroom offers a different type of opportunity here that we haven't had in the past. In the past, we may have went to the FCC. We may have went to the White House. We may have tried other administrative means. But in this day and time, we may have no other choice but to take them to the courtroom. And we believe that some of the new changes that we've seen in the redlining issues in the courts may present a real opportunity.
Wow, you've got your work cut out for you. Now, see, that's a big deal because we're talking about one of the nation's largest telecom corporations with a reputation for diversity and inclusion and best practices. So this is a big thing for you to tackle. Is there anyone backing you up? What are the civil rights organizations saying? What are the public interest groups saying?
Well, it's kind of ironic you would ask that question. We have found thus far that both civil rights groups and public interest groups have a real interest in this issue. And so we've had great conversations with both the public interest groups and the civil rights group of gaining their support on this issue.
So what needs to happen to undo this situation?
Well, AT&T has agreed to sit down with us. But when they sit down with us, they need to do several things. Number one, they need to acknowledge there's a problem. There's a problem that there's a group of people who are not being served well by the high-speed broadband that could be provided to them. Number two, a plan needs to be put in place as to how do we correct that problem. And number three, there needs to be some plan going forward to monitor the progress so that we do know that that problem is corrected and it's done in the right way with the right people involved.
And if we don't get that kind of corporation, or if you don't get that kind of corporation, what happens next?
Well, we're going to go on to the next step. And I think that all of the steps in this process play a role, whether it's issues with presented to consumers, whether we present it to the stockholders, whether we're looking at the administrative means, or if we lastly have to take them to the courts and see how far does this problem at AT&T go within the company. We get into the litigation of it, I think one of the things that I'll be looking to see is how far does this attitude toward redlining and disadvantaged people go within the corporate up the chain.
Right, yeah.
And certainly I think that if we have to, I think we go from the bottom all the way to the top and find out whether the executives and the board members of this corporation support this type of mentality at AT&T.
It's almost hard to believe that this is really happening. Have you had a chance to have a conversation with AT&T? What are they saying in response to the letter that you wrote them?
Well, they have not dealt with the issue head on. What they say is more of what I call a macro sense answer, in that they have invested over $300 million in infrastructure within Ohio and in Cleveland, and that that's their answer as to the issue. But the issue is a little bit deeper than that.
Okay.
The issue is they failed to answer why did they do this in those communities in Cleveland, whether it's Hoffton Estates, Glenville, Collinwood, Stockyard, Central, all of those areas. Those are the areas where they failed to provide fiber-based high-speed broadband.
When I take a minute to study this map, and you're right, it's blatant, it's right there. There's this pocket, I can see it, that's just missing. It's right there on the map.
That's what's showing up on the map, and that's the issue. They have no explanation as to why they have placed inferior equipment in those areas that are so socially disadvantaged. These are the exact people that AT&T should be trying to give an advantage to, not a disadvantage.
And they've never just outright flat denied it.
No, they always come back and say, oh, they throw the big number at you. We have invested $300 million in communities in Ohio. But we're not talking about all communities. We're talking about the communities where the disadvantaged, the disenfranchised live. Those people who need an opportunity, they're denying them an opportunity.
Well, Mr. Parks, it looks like you got your work cut out for you, but I tell you, it's really interesting, and I know we're all looking forward to see how this plays out. And I want to thank you for stopping by to talk to us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure you're with us next time when we get the goods on Sinclair Broadcast. Big move to buy Tribune Media. Is this a good thing for TV news, or should the FCC and the Department of Justice block the merger? We'll get into it. I'm Madelyne Woods, and I'll see you next time on The Goods.